She says that she's Somali. That is a nationality. That's like me saying, I'm not black, I'm American.
In the past, I have elaborately explained what it means to be Somali in 2 of my videos, which I have uploaded onto YouTube, defining the root word of Somali and defining Somali identity. In both videos, I have talked about how Somali identity can be categorized into 3 aspects. The first aspect of Somali identity is Somali, the tribe. The thing is, a lot of people conflate tribe and clan. These are 2 different things. You see, a tribe is the embodiment, of many clans, whereby a clan is the subdivision of a tribe. So Somalis are one tribe which are subdivided into sub-clans. You understand? So Darod and Marihan and Majerten and Hawiye and so on and so forth and Isaq. These are, sub-clans, not tribes. Now, that being said, there are many tribes in the Horn of Africa and Somalis are one of them. The usual tradition in these regions is that most major regions are named after its occupying tribe. For example, Oromo people come from Oromia, and eastern Ethiopia is known as the Somali state because it's inhabited by the Somali tribe. There are over 40 tribes in Kenya and Somalis are one of them. For those who don't know, Somalis are classed as an African tribe, not a nationality. The name Somali existed as a tribe name before the establishment of Somalia, the country. Now, let's get one thing straight. As I have said, the country was named after the Somali tribe, not the other way around. To the colonial powers, it was Somaliland, i.e. the lands of the Somalis. That is, before the establishment of the Somali government. By that I mean all the regions in the Horn of Africa which are occupied by Somalis, including northern Kenya, eastern Ethiopia, and the modern national country of the Somalis, i.e. Somalia, were mapped out as the land of the Somalis by the colonial powers who failed to subjugate the ancestors of the Somali tribe who fought bravely against their colonial oppression. Eventually, once the Somali tribe fought for their independence, a part of the Somali region, just one part of it, became a recognized national country. And then later, the independence of Djibouti followed, which is another Somali region. Without going deeper into colonial historical analysis, from what I have said so far, we simply learned that the name Somali existed as a tribe name before the establishment of Somalia, the country, and also the name Somali existed pre-colonial times. The third aspect of Somali identity is the Somali nationality. Now, not everyone from Somalia is Somali. Ethnic Somali identity is exclusive to and can only be claimed by the Somali tribe, whereby the Somali national identity can be claimed by anyone who is born and bred in the Somali soil. Also, there are people who are Somali by association to the land of the Somalis, that is by designation. Basically, they live there and therefore they are Somalis. So here is a simple way to remember. Somali or Somalis is someone who belongs to the Somali tribe or ethnic group. Somalian is someone who is born and bred in Somalia, the country, or a Somali national. Basically, my point is that Somali identity isn't just a name of a country or a national identity, rather it is derived from the Somali tribal name, i.e. the Somalis.
But when you come to the shores of America, it goes underneath the classification of what runs here.
The thing is, racial and social labels in the Western world are not set on one stone. They keep changing and fluctuating from one social construct to another. Once upon a time, the slave descendants shipped from the continent of Africa were seen as Negroes. Then they were labeled colored people. And then from colored people, they were given the modern racial labeling black in terms to separate the slave descendants from the other colored people from various parts of the world who began migrating into the Americas during the 18th century. As a Somali, who is to say I don't belong to the colored people racial category, since I don't share any affinity which binds me to you as a man who belongs to the black race? It is understandable when Negroid Africans claim to be black, since you guys share a genetic heritage, ancient culture, and language dating back to pre-Atlantic slave trade. By the way, when I say African Negroes, I'm speaking of these guys, not these guys.
It don't matter if you say you're a Somali. Look at Mohammed Noor. He's a Somali. And when he shot the white female, Justine Ruzik, and ended up taking her life, they treated him no different than a black man like myself.
First and foremost, let's separate the facts from your interpretations. It's a fact that Mohammed Noor, may Allah grant his freedom, accidentally shot and killed a white woman. It's a fact that he was trialed for his mistakes and served his time in accordance to the law of the United States. But the fact that he was treated like a black man, even though I don't understand what that means, it's your interpretation with no factual basis whatsoever. As far as injustice committed by the American government is concerned, my interpretation is that it is not one-dimensional, rather it's multiple. Especially when it comes to Muslims, despite their ethnic origin, I would say it's more tyrannical towards us, i.e. those who adhere collectively to the Islamic faith. Now, for that same reason, then who is to say he wasn't treated like a Muslim man? But that's just my interpretation of the reality I perceive, which remains contrary to the facts in front of us. However, one factual interpretation which I believe about reality is that we attract certain things because that is the character we portray, or maybe sometimes we are the good tomatoes among the rotten ones.
See, let me tell you something. The reason why we know we're black is because the white supremacists in America let us know real quick what we are, and they're gonna let you know what you are too.
All things, whether good or bad, happen because we allowed it to take place and further spread. White supremacism exists in contrast to black inferiorism. The only reason why someone would feel superior to you is simply because they see weakness in you, or because in the case of white America, they broke these black American slave descents like wild horses. And furthermore, due to 500 years of conditioning, the descendants of the early slaves, now black Americans, and their African American relatives, i.e. the African Negroes, became subservient to the rules and regulations which were explicitly made to oppress them. Now, all of this could have been avoided if the kings and the rulers of the villages or kingdoms which these people were taken showed strength and unity. However, that was far from ever taking place, since some of these kings sold their subjects for a bunch of Russian dolls and alcohol. Deep it. Just think about that for a minute. The truth of the matter is, if you devalue your people, you lose value and respect from others, and therefore become inferior. And that is where victim mentality creeps in. As a Somali, I don't believe white supremacy exists, because I don't remember a time in history when I felt inferior to them and their expression of power. You see, they tried to trample on me, but they failed time and time again throughout history. One can even argue that, after the Berbers, the Somali race are the only African tribe who either sold white soldiers captured from the battlegrounds and sold them into slavery, or kept them as prisoners of war to be ransomed for a hefty amount of wealth. And this was during the 14th century and also during the colonial periods. As a Somali, I am opposed to the so-called black culture because it is not compatible with my history, and it's doing more harm to my people intellectually, culturally, religiously, and morally than any good. So what use is it for me then? Nothing. Zero. Zilch.
Bottom line. So calling yourself Somali is not going to save you from white supremacy? Not in America.
At this point, the use of white supremacy is a scapegoat for black Americans to blame all of their failures and their slow evolving progress. You see, 500 years of subjugation made them prone to victim mentality. However, in those 500 years to 600 years, Somalis refused their pride to be trampled down upon by another race. So where the white race triumphed over your ancestors, they're becoming your superiors, they failed to subjugate my ancestors, and therefore they did not become my superiors. Kabish? As you continue to accept the superiority the white race has over you, today I refuse the existence of any superiority over me. You see, Somalis give such title only to God. Only Allah the Most High is the most superior. Nothing is superior to me except God. Again, while the race you consider superior used abhorring terminologies to describe you in the past, historically, they praised me for my bravery, admired me for my beauty, and hated me because of my faith. And they still continue to do so until today. So yes, I know how white people see me, but I am sure they don't see me like they see you. To them, I am a nation and an opponent. Kabish? Now, as they say, talk without evidence is cheap. So I'm gonna provide some receipts to back up my claims. Even though there are many more reports from white soldiers and their shocking encounters with the Somalis, however, due to the 10-minute video duration required by TikTok, here is the story of one remarkable British soldier, Helmey.
A Somali always felt himself to be twice as good as any white man, or any other kind of man at all, and still does, even when he is wrong. Islam does wonders for the self-respect of non-white people, and Christianity is right to worry about the spread of Islam in Africa, and must honestly face the question of why it has happened. There cannot be one more Christless. Of all the races of Africa, there cannot be one better to live among than the most difficult, the proudest, the bravest, the vainest, the most merciless, the friendliest, the Somalis. I knew an Italian priest who had spent over 30 years among the Somalis, and he made 2 converts, and it amazed me that he got even those 2. The Prophet has no more fervent and ignorant followers, but that is not their fault that they are ignorant, their natural intelligence is second to none. I never saw a Somali who showed any fear of death, which, impressive though it sounds, carries within it the chill of pitilessness and ferocity as well. If you have no fear of death, you have none for anybody else's either, but that fearlessness has always been essential to the Somalis who have had to try and survive hunger, disease and thirst while prepared to fight and die against their enemies, their fellow Somalis for pleasure in the blood feud, or the Ethiopians who would like to rule them, or the white men who got in the way for a while. Every time a Somali got whipped, an Italian soldier was killed. There is no one alive as tough as the Somali nomad. No one. An Askari wounded in a fight in the Hod country walked 14 miles holding his guts in his hand, was sewn up and lived to soldier again. And the women are as spiritually strong as their men. The Somalis bitterly resent the white man and struggle continually, and admirably, by lies and intrigue, to fight off his influence, which spells the end of their peculiar world. You cannot beat them. They have no inferiority complexes, no wide-eyed worship of the white man's ways, and no fear of him, of his guns, or of his official anger. They are a race to be admired, if hard to love.
Now, all of that being said, let's conclude this video by saying, from historical and cultural point of view, the Black American and their distant relatives of the African Negroes within the African American community, at this point it is safe to say white people are superior to you than they are to me, and that is because you are the one allowing it, since you seem to have decided to live how they see you from their standpoint. You've allowed them to define you in every way, shape or form. Also, judging from the way you're speaking, you are like the crab in the bucket trying to pull me down to your level, since you have accepted to live with the definitions of the so-called white supremacists which they had given you. I should accept it too. Now, speaking on behalf of all Somalis, I believe if any superiority exists, then I am more superior than he who thinks to be superior to me. By that I mean, no human or creation of God is superior to me or can be superior to me, except he who created them all. Inferiority and superiority is a mental state. You are what you believe of yourself. Therefore, I follow the footsteps of my ancestors and walk upon this earth like they did. As a Somali, no man has the power to call me anything except what my ancestors chose to call themselves, and again, that is Somali. Furthermore, I don't need to be saved from white supremacy, because how can I be saved from something which I believe is non-existent? I live in this world by my terms and definitions while abiding by the law of God and living according to my cultural values which I carry with me wherever I go.